Welcome back to another edition of Research Fantasy Presents our MLB DFS hitter pool for Friday, April 14th, 2017. I'm guessing tax day is not tomorrow since it's a Saturday, so make sure to get your taxes done. I don't know what that has to do with baseball. I don't know why. I guess it's the accounting degree I have that always reminds me around this time of year that it's tax time. Thank goodness I'm not doing that. But yeah, let's talk baseball. I'm actually really excited. This is a big slate. Not only do you get the benefit on bigger slates of just naturally seeing lower ownership on players in good positions because there's so many of them, but then the guys who go under the radar go even further under the radar. So I'm hoping to try to catch what could be some lightning tonight. Even though he wasn't mentioned on the podcast a couple of nights ago, that's what happened for me with Keon Broxton when he had his pretty decent game. Captured at like 0.6% ownership, 0.9% ownership, something like that. And if that had been a slate where I had pitching anything close to right, it would have been a big night because you get a guy at that kind of low ownership, you are in like Flynn. I don't even know what that means. If you want to drop a line, because I'm not going to take the time to Google it right now, of what that means or what the background is on it, that'd be fantastic. So I say all of that to start us off with a guy that I think is going to go criminally underused tonight, especially on FanDuel, because of the fact that he's slotted in at that first base position, which in years past he had been a third baseman, and that's Danny Valencia of the Seattle Mariners going up against Martin Perez. And okay, so I'm sure at this point you're thinking, so you're telling me after in the first video that we want to take a guy who's hitting 143 after you just roasted Josh Donaldson for basically being a useless baseball player and everybody continuously espousing the virtues of putting Josh Donaldson in your roster. And I get that. But Danny Valencia is a specialist. Josh Donaldson is a good baseball player. Josh Donaldson was an MVP. There's no excuse for Josh Donaldson to not be playing good baseball, right? And the same with Miguel Cabrera. Good, you have 4 hits through the year. I'm not going to keep putting you in my roster if the success rate of using you has been, 10%. I don't know how many games have been played, yes, but he was a fantasy asset in 1 game so far. So Valencia has been a fantasy asset in 0 games so far. Lefty masher, $2,300. He's cheap on DraftKings as well. I don't think, especially since on this team, people are going to gravitate first, I think, toward Nelson Cruz, because he's the most well-known of all of the lefty mashers, and he hasn't been playing well as it is either. Then I think you see him maybe go to Mitch Haniger, because if you want to get cute, why not get cute with the guy who's actually been hitting the ball and playing well and still doesn't have that name value. Plus, he's slotted in the outfield, I believe, so you're not wasting a spot in a position that you really have to get right to win tournaments. If you play Valencia at first base and he doesn't do what we think he's going to do, it's over. It's done, because the first baseman is going to have some kind of a big game. Valencia is at that price point, though, where that might not be true. $2,300 on a Kershaw night. He really does let you get probably one other bigger bat in your lineup, and if everything else works out right, you could be okay. Like I said, this is a guy who's mashed lefties throughout his career. That's why he's over here in Seattle with the departure of Franklin Gutierrez. Not even close to a cash game play for me, hitting 143. Tournament play, got to tell you, is going to be one of my higher owned guys. Don't sleep on Kyle Seager. Lefty-lefty matchup's going to draw a lot of people away. Pretty strong history against Martin Perez. Again, another good guy to have in your Mariners stack, because I think a lot of people may try to go cute with the righties. Toss a lefty in there. Maybe go Valencia, Haniger, Cruz, Seager. Just a thought for tonight. Let's move on. My second one of my favorite plays. I'm not doing the tiered system today just because the pitchers, all the hitters I really like are basically under 4K. So let's go to Brian Dozier, 3,700. Been a guy who's been here a couple of times, has not come through. Taking on Dylan Covey, who I know nothing about. But what I do know about Dozier is Dozier seems to be a pretty streaky hitter. If you want to disagree with that fact, I ask you to explain what happened last year when he was just raking home runs and had like 35 home runs in the second half of the season. A lot of them coming in a very short span of time against that, but that's probably just variance. It has nothing to do with, a guy continuously seeing the baseball well or anything like that. It's just pure happenstance. But Dozier and this Minnesota Twins team is one of those teams you constantly see getting written about, like they don't profile well against this pitcher, and then they put up 11 runs. So I don't care how they profile. If they're going to score runs, I'm going to put teams that score runs into my lineup. White Sox don't think their bullpen is terrific. At this point in the year, it's way too early to tell if they are or not. 3,700 on Dozier, I'm fine with it. Great component plays with guys like Jason Castro, who is cheap and raking the ball, and a guy that I definitely considered for this right up in Miguel Sano, who has just been an absolute monster to start the year off. He's everything we thought he was going to be when he was a highly touted prospect. I could go a lot of different directions with my top play of the night. It's hard not to look at Yoenis Cespedes right now. George Springer's a guy, Mike Trout, all guys who are hitting very well. Definitely not Josh Donaldson, as I kind of have already stated. And I'm being a little bit unfair. I get it. He's only, he's hitting 310. He's got 2 home runs, but he's basically had 2 games where he's been really useful as a fantasy asset. I'm sorry. I'd rather pay for Miguel Sano, who has had 2 games where he hasn't been a fantasy asset. So I alluded to a guy earlier in my pitcher video, that I'm convinced lines up perfectly on paper, just like Hosmer did last night. And even though I love him and I'm going to own a lot of him because I believe this is a perfect situation, I am fully ready for him to disappoint me tonight, and that is Freddie Freeman, $3,800. Gets Jules Chasin, who was ripped apart by Dodger lefties on opening day. Colorado had no answer for him because Colorado is just not a good baseball team from the 1 to 5 position right now. Really, 1 to 5. Really some bad offensive struggles on that team. They're playing Johnny Cueto tonight. They're, again, basically just a full avoid for me. Freddie Freeman in this new park, a little bit easier for left-handed power to go out of the yard. Chaseen, not a guy that's really profiling as this guy. His stats don't say he's going to give up a lot of home runs, but he did 4 times on opening day. So the opportunity is there. The Braves are definitely one of my top stacks of the day because even in a good matchup, and even though they've been hitting reasonably well, I just don't think they're going to see the ownership. People don't want to play the Atlanta Braves. People might say, well, it might be a sneaky spot for Chaseen after coming off a good outing against the Rockies to go to Atlanta and have a good outing there. I'm not going to be that guy. You're more than welcome to it. Guarantee you're going to have low ownership of him, but I just don't see it working out. I'm hoping that Freddie Freeman does what I think he's going to do, which looks something like a couple extra base hits. Hopefully 1 goes over the fence, 2 or 3 RBIs, best case scenario like 5 RBIs. But he's a guy that I want to have in my lineups tonight, but I'm fully ready for that, whole this great statistical play just blew up in your face because baseball thing to happen, like it's going to happen pretty much every night this year. So after painting a beautiful picture of how wonderful baseball is, I want to thank you for joining us. Again, our top 3 tournament bats, Danny Valencia, Brian Dozier, Freddie Freeman. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel below. Head over to researchfantasy.com, sign up for our MLB mailing list, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at Research and Win, and join us again tomorrow.